The human currency, valuing relationships where behavior meets economics. A LinkedIn post. I was chatting to an experienced support coordinator whom I have known for years. She raised a very good point. Support workers should be invisible when supporting participants, meaning they enable, not influence, participants to engage in life. Support workers shouldn't impose their beliefs, opinions, or control the narrative or impose their will. They are solely there to improve outcomes in conjunction with their direct line manager and the care team. A lot of support workers get too involved and forget their place. This in turn causes chaos and confusion. As a provider, I'm there to guide and support workers to stay in their lane. This can be challenging as some decide to go independent or to move to another provider who accept their ways as they feel this will benefit the participant. In my eyes, this is manipulation. What do other providers think? This was a post that I came across on LinkedIn, and I sat on it for 12, 14 hours, and then I commented. And what I wrote was, isn't it right to challenge the norm, to challenge the expectations of family where complacency may have set in? As a professional with tacit and evidence-based experience, it's much harder to tell a family why what they are doing will create more negative long-term effects and strategies on breaking poor habits and cycles. I see it as an imperative to put the participants' long-term needs at the forefront while challenging their comfort zone. If it was as simple as doing what the family and participant want all the time, then support workers will barely be required. There's much more context needed for the conversation. And then I invited this person onto the podcast. Now, whether this person accepts, it sounds like they might, and I'm not going to dox them, but I want to lay the groundwork to this conversation and to this discussion, because this is a really common confusion, and it's a back and forth that I've had in my mind since day one of being a teacher and a support worker. The previous podcast I talked about needing to make yourself a necessity in someone's life, in that you're useful to the other person. They need you because of the value you bring, not a necessity in the context of they rely upon me to make all their decisions and do all their things and brush their hair and brush their teeth and put their clothes on and they wouldn't survive without me. No. That's not what I meant. A necessity in that you are so invaluable. You provide such a meaningful value to the family and the participant and the experience of their entire world that if it comes down to you and another worker, they're going to choose you because of the value that you bring. So I understand the point that this person's made. Let's just call him X. But it is a classic tension in NDIS work. So the duty to respect the autonomy, but avoid overreaching, versus the professional responsibility to promote genuine long-term well-being. And I agree that when support workers get too involved, they can create dependency. And they create family conflict because it's a complex dynamic. And if you're going to intercede with your own opinions and beliefs as a support worker, and so I'm already framing it to the pro of that idea, because what this X post states is that you shouldn't do that at all. No beliefs, no morals, no ideas that are yours should be imprinted upon the participant and their care situation. Well, I mean, we're all a product of nurture and our environment, so we have a bias. That's, again, what the last podcast was about. And this is out of no means disrespectful to that X post. It was a great post to actually inspire my thinking for me to go, yeah, wow, that is a really challenging point. What do I think about this? But if you are going to make that impression and put your ideas forward, then you are at risk of destabilizing the home environment, because then the participant may return home, may return to the care facility wherever they are, and they've they might start challenging the ideas because you've put that thought in their head, or you've had the discussion, you've inspired the thought. Now, we're all not trained psychologists, because a psychologist would simply ask questions and have the person at the center of it come up with answers. Role clarity is important. And I agree that if a person is funded for specific tasks like daily living assistance, then that's what your job entails. It's there to do that. But when you're ingrained in someone's life and engrossed in it, you can't help but have a conversation. You're building connection. You're talking about political ideology, everything, all the things that are going on in that person's life, because it can be really hard to stay on task and no one's perfect. So even the support worker in that instance will often stray from the task at hand because they're influenced to do so by the conversation. I'm talking a lot in ideas and in concepts, and so I'm going to give specific examples later on. Felt the burnout myself when I've tried to come into a situation and, air quotations, fix a problem, fix a family, fix a situation, and my romantic partner will tell you, yes, that is his number one problem. He tries to fix everything and he doesn't simply listen and acknowledge my emotions, allow me to vent. He wants to fix the problem. And so it just happens to be that some people are more pragmatic and problem solving orientated. That happens to be me. And some people are more emotionally in tuned and allow a person to share and connect with that person through their sharing and allow them the space to speak. That's a phenomenal skill of an empath and of a support worker. If you're good at those skills, you would be a great support worker. I talked last week about the CEO of Wallara and how he just talked through me and talked over me, albeit on social media, whatever. Now I have a bias to, I don't like that person now because of the way that he treated me. But I would still never tell someone not to go to Sage's Cottage because I think it's a phenomenal program. I haven't been in their programs, but I would have seen a lot of it in the last few years, and they run a phenomenal program. But yeah, they've got some problems with their understanding of duty of care versus dignity of risk. And again, conflict of interests. If I'm working with a participant that goes to that program, I'm incentivized financially as a provider, as a support worker, and this is a hypothetical, to potentially tell that participant, no, don't go there because I saw this and I saw this and I saw this, so don't go there, just spend the day with me instead. Like, I'm not going to do that as an individual because I don't agree with that. And I think it is so important, coming from the public sector, coming from schools, to have as many positive environments, particularly for socializing with like-minded peers. And it's really hard to find good programs that do that. Sages is a phenomenal program for what it does in that instance. Even though I've had a few confrontations and arguments with particular support workers from that organization. And they've treated me poorly and they've disrespected me, but so be it. I'm not going to allow that for me to have a poor judgment on that entire organization. I think it's a great organization. Getting back on topic, should you, as a support worker, imprint and convey your biases, your ideologies, and your beliefs onto a participant and their family? This is where I think it's really grey. I think the answer is grey. There's definitely pros and cons to both sides of it. Okay, what I'm going to do now is I'm going to give a few case studies. I'm going to give fake names and I'm going to use similar stories as to what I've seen over the years in support work. I'm not going to use hearsay. I'm not going to use rumors. I'm going to use my one-on-one experience, what I've seen and what I've heard. Yeah, you're only going to get my side of the situation. You're not going to get the other person's, which I'm sure they would see things maybe slightly differently, maybe differently altogether. One participant I've worked with had a really poor diet, were quite lazy, and the parents were really overbearing. They had high expectations, but they were reasonable. You know, you're paying someone to do support work, but this participant was really high functioning, had a full-time job, basically the parents wanted me to change the participants' habits. Now, that's extremely difficult. No one changes because you want them to. I'm there 4 hours, maybe 8 hours a week, and they are with themselves 160 hours. They are with the family 80 hours, but conscious and not asleep and not at work, let's say 30 hours, 20 to 30 hours. To expect me to change this person's habits, already you're crossing over both opinions, whether I should or should not imprint upon this person's life, because from what I'm told from this X post, no, I should not give my beliefs. I'm there to simply help them to be independent, and that's it. Well, they're pretty independent as it is. And yes, I have the knowledge for health and nutrition and lifestyle and some education on money and whatever else. I can be a positive role model. I can be a positive influence. But I can't smack the cookies out this person's hand. I can't tell them, don't you buy those things. I can ask them questions like a psychologist would and have them come up with the answers, and then come back next week and see that there's still cookies in the cupboard, see that they're putting on weight. But for this situation, which I think is a really common situation, the problem that I saw was that the parents were overbearing and overstepped the mark, and they treated this middle-aged person who was capable, had a job, lived independently. They treated them like they were a child, and they did the parent thing that all parents do. They want to protect their kids. But at some point, this person has to take responsibility of their own life. And they have to make those decisions, and they're not going to change just because I want them to. So they were annoyed at the fact that I couldn't change this person's habits. They were annoyed at the fact that they didn't see, of course they didn't see the value in what I was bringing to the table, because they were really out of the picture. They didn't even see me in their house. But anyway, this is one situation where it was challenging, it was grey, and it was next to impossible to accomplish that task. And I was being asked to imprint my beliefs and my ideas onto this person's life. Health is a spectrum. It is really an abstract concept. So people, particularly with autism, don't understand it. Why can I eat the cookie this day, but I can't eat it that day? Why I can only have one cookie a day? Okay, one cookie a day. And why is this cookie better than that cookie? Oh, the sugar on the thing. Okay, but you've got all these other chemicals. Oh, but I'm backing it onto what I've had for lunch, and I've had 3 healthy meals today, so then I can have the snack and dessert. It's so abstract that it really does take a lot of self-education and self-motivation to want to make those changes. Fact was, I was taking this person to the gym weekly. I was taking them grocery shopping or offering to do that, offering healthy suggestions, constantly offering, constantly talking to them about their diet, and probably forcefully putting my opinions and saying that's not healthy out there, to the point that it was damaging our relationship. And I think it abstracted it a bit. And then they were speaking negatively about me to their parents. To then their parents were coming back at me, oh, what's going on with the relationship? He does, blah, 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 blah. And I'm sort of stuck in the middle where I'm like, well, I'm trying to build the relationship with them. I'm trying to do the healthy things. We're going for walks. We're doing fitness and active things. We're going to the gym. We're talking about eating healthy. I can offer to help them cook healthy meals. And we did do it sometimes. All I can do is put the olive branch out there. I can't force them to do it, particularly because they're so high functioning. Next one. This is another situation where I had a couple of arguments. They were definitely heightened conversations with the manager of a supported independent living environment, a completely different provider. So they're a provider. They've got a participant in the house. We're a provider. We have a support worker going into that house. Really common thing for providers. Now, they don't generally talk to each other all that much, and it's obvious why the longer this goes on. As soon as these NDIS changes and funding requirements have changed, I tell you what, the abrasiveness of some other providers, I feel like, has been impacted by these financial changes, because everyone's sort of scraping and clawing for the participants' hours, which it's very gross. But my view has always been, I'm here, I'll have a candid, uncharged conversation with anyone and everyone. Providers, I want to be involved in your care team meetings. Please invite me. I'd love to sit there and listen. You ask my opinion, I'll give it. The more information that I can give you, the more information that you can give me and we can have as a team, the better outcomes that we are able to provide for the participant at the heart of the story. And that's what it's about to me. I was a teacher for 12 years. Keep repeating myself. Yes, Ryan, we friggin' know. I didn't do that because I wanted to become a millionaire. I did that because I cared about people and I wanted to have a positive impact on their lives and help people take empowerment over their lives and get good outcomes for them. This SIL provider manager, there was a confusion about how many hours our support worker was able to work with this person. And the point that happens often, it got to the point where the funding was running really thin and we weren't going to make it in time to the end of the review. And so our support worker offered to volunteer their time for the remaining 6 weeks to do those shifts for free. I've never seen that before. That was a really unique experience for me. We came to an agreement where the support worker would be paid. The coordinator intervened, and that is their job to advocate for the participant. And I had to, my thinking is that I'm very confident that the SIL manager did not understand how the NDIS works because they aren't in charge of funding. They're through the NDIA. They're completely different, and they don't take funds from the NDIS. Only the other providers do. And it is not the provider of the SIL house's right to tell the participant what they can and can't do. The coordinator, the guardian, and the participant can decide that together. Not my job to tell them what to do, and I don't. But yeah, we needed to have a budget. So anyway, it came down. The budget was going to be 4 hours for support work on a Saturday, weekly until the remainder of that funding period. The manager had drilled into this participant's head, you have to be back in 4 hours, you have to be back in 4 hours, you have to be back in 4 hours. Whatever they have done, they've manipulated this participant to the point that when our support worker took this participant out, the entire time they were stressed out of their mind asking about the time. They don't understand the abstract idea of time. They don't understand it, the concept. So they don't know what time it is. Every 5 minutes, they're going to ask the time because they don't know how long 4 hours is. So that entire time was completely captured by the mind games that this manager played, and they knew they did it. The anxiety and that situation was completely manipulated in that situation, all for the ego of the SIL manager who was challenged. Now, in that instance, no providers put their beliefs, their opinions, or impose their will. The person in the line manager who was the top of that provider status, the top touch point, created that problem. Now, should I not put my beliefs forward about what that they did was wrong? Because I think I absolutely should. I think I should be saying in that instance to the participant, don't worry about the manager. I'll deal with them. You're not in trouble. It's okay. And having to reassure them, and I should step in that instance. I have to break these rules of this ex post in order to do that. Or I allow the participant to be the victim, and as a result, who knows what long-term effects that has. Final example. A participant wanted to buy jewelry. They are very complex with their disability, ADHD, autism, intellectual disability, and the jewelry was expensive. So we went into the jewelry store. Participant had explained to me that they wanted a particular type of jewelry, and it looked exactly like an example that they had had. And then a salesman got involved, as they're going to do. You're there to buy something. You have to go through that process unless you're going to buy everything online. Now, I'm standing in that situation, watching the salesman do their job and watching the participant engage. And I'm thinking to myself, is this salesman manipulating the participant right now? Because the participant decided that they didn't want what they initially came in there to buy. They wanted what the salesman was selling them, which was the only thing that they had, which was kind of like that, but it kind of wasn't. So my job in this as a support worker in that instance is really confusing. Do I allow this transaction to go ahead? Expensive jewelry, because that's the participant's right. It's their dignity of risk. Or do I have a duty of care to stop that salesman from doing their job? And now I'm having to fight against what the participant wants because I think they've been manipulated. What do I do? And that's the essence of the challenge that the ex-post had, that I felt. So I've got to sit there in that instance and think a few things. Have they been manipulated by the salesman? Has their mind genuinely changed and they now want this new thing? Do they understand that they don't have to make this choice right now and they can wait? Or we can go somewhere else and get that jewelry somewhere else. Or are they a victim of instant gratification and they want something because they just want it? And they've touched it, they've imagined themselves with it, with the new thing, and so now they want it. And look, we're all victims of instant gratification. That's why we open up the packet of Tim Tams on a Friday or Saturday night. That's why we have the sixth beer instead of saying no and leaving it in the fridge. That's why we have buyer's remorse when we buy that new dress or that new pair of shoes and then never wear them. So what is your role as the support worker right now in this instance? So what I didn't make the purchase then and there. I had to convince everyone. The salesman was still pushing and I had to convince everyone, no, what we're going to do is we're going to leave the store, we're going to talk about it, we're going to come back. We left. I then took the participant aside and I explained to them how much money they had and that they did have a choice, how much money they'd have left. Again, money is an abstract concept, so they don't really understand, okay, I've got a certain amount of money, I'm going to spend 3/4 of it and I've only got this much left. They don't really know what that means. They know how it hurts their ability to buy other things in the future at some capacity, but not really. It's too abstract for them. I did explain to them that they had a choice. I did explain to them that they can afford it, but if they spend it, then they won't be able to afford many other things and they'll have to wait and save up. And that's their only real way of deciding. It's different when it's money earned versus money on a pension too, because they know they've got money coming in next week. And to each individual, this exact example will present completely different. So it was a challenge to drag them away mentally, but I wanted to give them 30 minutes to at least an hour to remove themselves from that purchase. And then if they still wanted it, I explained we'll go back and purchase it. So we did that, we took our time, and they still wanted it. We went back, we made the purchase. The support worker is like a person at the arcade who drops that silver counter into one of any 10 slots. And then that counter, it makes its way dinging and binging against the metal bars, and it finds its way all the way down to the platform, either to the left, in the middle, to the right. And that's what a support worker is. They're the ones that drop the counter. And they can make manipulations and changes the whole way down as that counter moves throughout the decision-making process of a participant in how they're going to garner their lives and what choices they're going to make on a day-to-day basis. So how much of an interventionalist will you be? How much will you intervene? What is right and wrong? And I think that's the right way to think about it. If I'm questioning myself and if I'm regretting what I've done, if I'm challenging myself and my mindset as a support worker, then at least I'm thinking, at least I'm trying to solve this unsolvable paradoxical puzzle. If I think I've got it all sorted and I'm never challenging myself or the participant or the family or the care team or the support coordinator or the other providers, then I don't think I'm doing my job right. I need to be challenged to figure out what my philosophy is so that I can make a considered, informed choice. If I just have an idea that pops into my brain and I go and do that idea without understanding the consequences of that choice or having someone explain it to me and explain the consequences and where that will lead, If I just do what I want to do every moment of every day, I will not get off the couch playing video games. I'll be eating McDonald's and I'll be in my pajamas. The discomfort of not knowing whether you did the right thing or not as a support worker should be the norm, and it should inspire you to go and learn, to go and listen to podcasts and read books and challenge your thinking. Because if you're not doing that, then what benefit are you? You're just someone who goes with the flow and you don't create any friction and change. And then you blink, and 5 years later, the participant is overweight, serious health issues, serious mental issues, no friends. They haven't considered the choices that have got them to where they've got to in their life. Is that respect for the person? Is that the dignity of their own life and choices? Well, I gave them choice and control. Now, look, they're on a ventilator because they've smoked themselves and drank themselves and binge eaten themselves to a bedridden and video gamed themselves to death. Now, I know I'm being a bit hyperbolic and it's a bit of an exaggeration, but from my 20 years in teaching and in disability support, not in managing, but in one-on-one work and support with all types of people, parents, participants, students in classrooms, people don't like to be challenged because it goes against what their brain finds the easiest pathway to continue doing what it's doing. When you add friction, it's uncomfortable. A discomfort is good. Do the hard thing. Leaving with this video, powerful point.
Why did you go become a Navy SEAL? That's a ridiculous thing to do, right? They just torture you to death in the water. Why'd you do it?
Because I wanted to serve my country in the highest capacity possible.
So you believed that there was a highest capacity,
Yes.
right? So that was an element of faith.
In a lot of ways.
Do you feel that you accomplished something real when you went through the Navy SEAL training program?
Absolutely.
Okay, why was it real?
It was the hardest thing that I've done.
Right. That's right. Yeah, was it meaningful?
Absolutely.
Was it transformative?
Yes.
And it was the hardest thing you'd ever done. The pathway to what's most real is through the hardest things that you can do. Why? Because that causes the best within you to make itself manifest.